Hello, welcome back to Just Here to Chat. I'm Tara, and in this video, I'm going to discuss the importance of a positive mindset and how do we go about creating that. If you're interested, stick around, and hopefully I'll see you on the other side. Talk soon. Hi, welcome back. Thanks for joining. So, let's get right to it. What is a positive mindset? What is a mindset? And how do we even develop one? Okay. So if you think about a mindset, it's basically made up of belief systems, experiences, and what we're taught. And we're taught a lot of things, not only from like our caregivers from a very young age, but from our teachers, from our society and culture, okay? And all of these things combined with our experiences and our personality create belief systems. Sometimes those belief systems are negative towards ourselves and others, and sometimes they're very positive. Okay? They're not necessarily true, however. Now, they may be what we call our truth, your truth, but it doesn't necessarily mean it can be generalized to every single person. And as human beings, that's a big mistake we tend to make, is thinking that our experiences or our mindset is the same as the next person. This is why we have other skills like communication and things like that to aid us in discovering those things. Otherwise, it's an assumption, and oftentimes we're left a little bit disappointed. If we have expectations that someone's going to support us, and then we find out that they believe something different. Does that make them wrong? Or does that trigger us in some way? Because I thought something or I expected something. I always say that the fastest way to disappointment is expectations. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have expectations, but we need to be able to communicate those expectations to make sure or ensure that they're realistic and that other people are on board with it so that we're not setting ourselves up for failure. Okay? So the mindset, you'll hear me say a lot of times that the belief systems that we have impacts our perspective, which is the filter in which we engage our whole environment through, our whole life, the choices we're willing to make, the opportunities we're willing to look at. All right. And I say willing because I always also say opportunities are only opportunities if, one, we are aware of it. Okay. And just because it's made publicly aware, we don't want to assume that someone is personally aware. All right. So one, that we're aware of it. And two, we're willing to put it on the table, which means we're willing to consider it in some capacity. That's usually when other skills like pros and cons come in or something like that. Is this the right choice for me type thing? Does this fit my value system? Is this in alignment with my goals? Is this a potential harm or risk for anybody? What is the importance of this? You know, all of those critical questions when you're trying to make a choice, especially if it's life altering in some sense. So the willingness to look at or consider something has a huge impact, okay? But first we have to be aware of it, okay? Awareness is huge. And we never want to make the assumption that just because I'm aware of it, that you're aware of it. Because we're all out here having different experiences. We're all out here being taught different moral codes, okay? We're all, if you go globally, we're all in different cultures that have a lot of these foundational belief systems that can vary. And it's not about competition or being right or wrong or I'm better than you or, or any of that stuff. That's ego. I always say ego is important, but we don't want it in the driver's seat. We don't want it fueling our choices necessarily. Okay? At least not unless we can filter it through other lenses. All right? But with regards to mindset, we hear a lot of times people, even me, I always talk about a positive mindset and stuff like that. Sometimes it's easier said than done because depending on how you were raised, what belief systems you hold, you may struggle with a positive mindset. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to come back to how do we create a positive mindset, if that is indeed what we are looking for, okay? It might be just around something. It may not be in general or whatever. But as we use a lot of these tools, we can create a mindset at any point that is open to possibility, okay? Is flexible, or at least more flexible if that's what we feel we need in order to be living our best life, because ultimately that's the goal. And that's going to look different from person to person. One person's best life might be globetrotting, right? Another person's best life may be living on 50 acres, not being bothered by anybody. I don't know. It's not for me to say what's right for you and what should make you happy. That's nobody's right to do or to project onto anybody. Okay? That's control. The key is to figure out what makes you happy, what's in alignment for you, and then surround yourself with people that are in alignment with that, okay? I'm not saying use people or only have people in your life that believe like you. That's not what I'm saying. It's just everything has a certain level of vibration to it. If you're more open to possibilities, if you're more flexible in your nature, then regardless of someone else's belief systems, you're going to want to surround yourself with people who are similar, okay? They don't have to necessarily have the same, religious background as you, or be in the same political party as you, or whatever, okay? It's just you want to make sure that you're in alignment in the way that you manage life, in a sense, so that, I don't know, we're not getting into that. I'm going to make an assumption here and say, you're an adult. You can figure out what you need in your life, okay? I'm just saying that if you are someone with a positive mindset and you're surrounded by naysayers or people that are fear-based or afraid to look at the positive or are more negative thinking, it will drain you. It will. That's exhausting. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the belief itself. I'm talking about the way we come at life, okay? How do I manage myself with challenges? And again, you don't necessarily have to have someone exactly like you, okay? But you want to make sure that whoever you are around on a regular basis isn't draining you either. But at the end of the day, you have to start where you're at. And when it comes to weaning people in and out of your life, that can be far more intimidating for some people than others, depending on your experiences, depending on your belief systems. The key there is to always filter it through. Is this serving me? And I don't mean in an opportunistic way. I mean, is this taking more from me than it's giving? Am I more exhausted and drained when I deal with this person or these people or this situation scenario? And if so, what is that teaching me? Do I need better boundaries? Do I need to communicate more? Sometimes it's us that need to show up differently. Sometimes people are just going with the flow and they don't even know that they're bothering you. And if you're not willing to tell them, we can't assume that people are going to read our minds. All right. So again, there's so many layers to this type of work. And there's so many different components to it with regards to self-accountability or holding others accountable as well. Showing up in a kind way. Right? I'm not saying be fake and be nice. I'm saying be kind because it's in alignment with your compassion. And if you don't have that, then maybe that's something you need to sit with. Why don't I have compassion? Maybe no one had compassion for me. Well, what can I learn from that? Right? It's going to vary because everybody's out here at different places and it's not a competition. There is no one person out here who is better than someone else. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying, are these people beneath me? No. Nobody's beneath you. They just might not be in alignment with you. There's a difference there. It's not that some people, this is a shady ground because obviously if someone's out here harming people for a living or doing things consciously because they enjoy that, well, it's a fine line, right? They're definitely not in alignment with me, okay? I'm just trying to keep it not about judgment, but about discernment, okay? I can discern that if somebody is literally on a different moral compass than I am, then that's a misalignment. That's not somebody I'm going to want in my social circle, okay? That's what I'm saying. But it should never be about, I'm going to get to heaven first. That's ego, right? If I'm trying to help you so that I can look good or I'm a holier than thou, I'm better than you. Therefore, let me humble myself so that everyone can see. I believe a wise teacher once said, don't let your left hand see what your right hand is doing or vice versa. And that's what that meant, okay? Is you're not doing it for show because then you're not in alignment with yourself. And if you're not, why? Because it's not about being better than. It's about being the best you that you can be. The only competition you ever want to be in or with is with yourself. And again, not to the point where you're driving yourself so hard that you either get yourself stuck in shame or so burnt out and tired that you don't even know how to move forward. Okay, so mindset plays into a lot of those things too. If my mindset is that I'm not a good person, maybe I was taught that I'm a bad person just by nature of being human and da-da-da and all this other stuff. And again, I'm not making fun of anyone's belief system. However, I think we can agree that that's not really going to help that person thrive as a human being in this lifetime. Okay? If you truly believe that you are rotten to the core, you will live down to that. And oftentimes, because if you are a kind person on some fundamental level, then chances are you are going to take people with you because it's not in resonance with you that you're bad, and therefore you're constantly battling a belief system, and therefore you will project that insecurity onto other people and create more damage versus looking inwards and saying, this belief doesn't serve me. I'm not harming anyone with trying to think that I'm not a bad person, okay? However, I might have a lot of work to do with that. And therefore, I need to start paying attention to how I talk to myself. And we all have something. Like I have a phrase that I say to myself that I'm going to work on is I'm uncoordinated, which has stopped me from participating in certain things out of a worry or concern of injuring myself, because historically I have been challenged with coordination. Okay, see how I reframe that a little bit? Because I got to work on that. I don't want to stamp myself with a label of uncoordination, because then I'm going to live down to that. I'm not going to live up to or try better myself. Yes, there are some people that are naturally more athletic than others or naturally more coordinated than others, okay? That doesn't mean you can't train yourself. You can take a functional patterns class or something and learn how to work with your body so that you can build coordination on a healthy level. There's many other things you can do too. And these are things that I'm working on, because I don't want to label myself in that way and then keep myself back from exploring or doing things that I consider fun and joyous, because I'm trying to build my best life. And therefore, I need to challenge myself when I notice I'm holding myself back in some capacity. If I know exploration brings me joy, okay, but I find myself, find myself holding myself back in some capacity because of a belief system, I'm going to want to work on that mindset, right? I'm going to want to challenge that, or at the very least reframe it so I'm not feeding that belief system and keeping myself stuck. You see people that fall into this sometimes with all kinds of self-talk, like, oh, I'm stupid or something like that. Or I'm lazy, or I'm this or that. And then they wonder why didn't I take that opportunity? Well, they offered me this free class or this opportunity to take this class and I turned it down. Why? Out of an insecurity that I'm not smart, or out of an insecurity that I'm going to be perceived as lazy? These are things that have come up over the years with different people. My big one is coordinated, but working on it, right? Don't be afraid to recognize that you're only human. Okay, we are. But I can say by nature of the fact that you're here watching this video, you're not doing everything wrong either. Because if you're coming up on my video, then you are interested in bettering yourself in some capacity. Okay, because all of my videos, other than my shorts, which are more about my happy moments, because part of it is when I want to create my best life, to find the roadblocks, I first have to determine, what do I want in my life? What makes me happy? So one of my big things is nature. So most of my shorts are videos of nature that make me happy. And I put them out there in the hopes that they can make you happy too along your journey. So if you're struggling, I know if I'm struggling on a particular day and I want some sensory input that's going to put a smile on my face, I might go back and watch a video. Because they're memories. They're memories that put a smile on my face. And that's the intention behind those. Okay? Is to remind you that you too can create those things in your life. If you like scrapbooking, scrapbook. If you like photography, do photography. Whatever. If you like to draw. And that way you can look back at your pictures when you need a little boost or something. Okay? And we all do, because we're all out here being human, right? Again, none of us are out here being perfect. But we're also not out here doing everything wrong either. So it's important that when you're doing this type of work where you're trying to better yourself, not change yourself or be someone else, but become the best you that you can be, okay? That's the change we're looking for. It's what's holding me back from being the best version of me that I can be, where I'm going to feel the way I want to feel, okay? So we recognize those challenges and then we work on them. But when we're in that type of frame of mind where we're working on our challenges, it can oftentimes become all-encompassing, and it's important to have reminders of what we're doing right as well. Because what we focus on, where attention goes, energy flows, okay? Or something like that. But we do tend to make it all about what we're focused on, whatever that may be. So be mindful that we have balanced focus, that we're not just deep diving on something that's holding us in an emotional state, right? Or keeping us stuck because it's feeding a fear around a belief system that isn't serving us, okay? It's all connected. So when you can recognize the things you want in your life, you can also recognize any roadblocks you may have to obtaining that. Those roadblocks are the areas that we want to focus on with regards to evolving, changing, growing. But we also want to recognize the things that we're doing right, because ego is important in this world. We just don't want it in the driver's seat. We don't want it to be the determining factor, but it is part of the equation. It's kind of like emotion. We want to pay attention to our emotions, but we don't want them to decide for us. Because usually that's when we end up with some regrets. Just saying. All right. So with mindset and changing that, it's really about the patterns. It's recognizing, am I negative self-talking? If that's the case, let me catch that when I say that and reframe it or challenge it. Be willing to look at opposing information, not because I'm wrong or I'm right, but because it helps the brain to even out. The brain likes consistency and patterns. So oftentimes when we're doing this type of work, we may see progress. And then if we have a really stressed day, maybe we're hungry, maybe we're tired, maybe we didn't get enough sleep. Excuse me. If that's the case, oftentimes we then get more easily emotionally triggered. And when that happens, we then get into our emotions, and we don't want those being the deciding factors, okay? But we oftentimes also think we regressed and that we're not making progress because now all of a sudden I engaged in an old pattern or behavior that I've been working on changing. That's just because the brain is tired and it goes back into automatic pilot and it goes back to what it's familiar with. That's more of a digression, if you will, okay? As long as you recognize it, you're mindful of it, and you switch gears. Make other intentional choices. So this is the work. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of, what do they say, 10 steps forward, 5 steps back. Still progress, okay? It's still progress. So that's one of those things that we want to recognize and take the win on, okay? Take the W, not the L. But what we focus on is usually influenced by our mindset. If we tend to be more down on ourselves, or we have self-worth issues, or we are negative towards ourselves, then we're going to focus more quickly on what we did wrong and how we're undeserving or this, that, or whatever, depending on what those belief systems are, okay? So the mindset over time, as we start finding more things to appreciate, recognize, own the W's, right? The wins. Our mindset is going to start becoming more positive. It's going to be open to more possibility. As we see progress, we're going to be more open to progress. We're going to feed that energy more easily because we believe in it more. So it's you start where you're at, and it can be long and grueling, but it's so worth it when you get there. Even just the progress, it makes such a difference with the opportunities you are open to in your life. And what you're willing to, the choices you're willing to make in order to create and work towards your goals. That's the importance of mindset. If your mindset is of the lens that, what's the point, or everything's bad, or this or that, or I'm unsafe anyway, what does it matter? Now, obviously, when we're dealing with safety, we want to make sure we are actually safe. We don't want to be delusional. Okay. Hopeful is good. It's positive. But we also want to do that within a realistic lens. Mindset. Okay. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But ultimately, it is repetitive work, because that's the way the brain works. You develop the belief systems and the mindset you have through repetition, through repeated thought processes, okay, that maybe you weren't mindful of, so you don't recognize that. But this is why it's important to pay attention to how you're thinking. What are the thoughts that you're having? If you're feeling a certain way, tune into your thinking. Tune into how you feel in your body, how you feel emotionally, what's happening on these levels. You might be surprised. Once you recognize the patterns and you sit with is this serving me and my goals and this trajectory that I'm on? Or is it holding me back in some capacity? It's not an all or nothing thing. Maybe there's aspects of it that are in alignment and we want to keep going with, but maybe there's other aspects intertwined there that we want to, I don't know, purge, let go of. Only you can answer that, and only through actually spending time with those things, with yourself. Okay? Well, again, I hope that helps. And take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And I will see you again soon.